Welcome everyone to
Unknown,
Unsolved
unseen.
Triple U.
Well, welcome everyone. This is episode 1. We are happy to have you guys here, and we're happy to get growing and starting on this thing.
Heck yeah.
So, first off, I'm Frank,
I'm Sage.
and we're about to talk about Roswell, which I assume a lot of people are somewhat familiar with the Roswell Incident. It's big in both popular culture and in conspiracy culture.
Yeah. Um, that's probably like the number one introduction, I think, to aliens.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I bit off more than I can chew because a lot of people might think Roswell isn't, they know it's a big deal, but they don't realize how deep this rabbit hole goes. I mean, I read over 400 pages worth of books. I skimmed the government documents on it because there's 2 government reports on it. And together they are over 1,200 pages.
Wow.
One of them is 999 pages, and I looked at that. I'm like, nope, I ain't reading all that. I skimming it, and I'm finding summaries.
I definitely think that you're going to be doing way more intense research than I will be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I read some good books on this. The one that a lot of people recommend is Witness to Roswell. That is by Thomas Carey and Donald Schmitt. That's the source I kept seeing pop around. I got the book and I read it, and man, there's a lot to unpack in that, and I'm going to go over some of the major parts in it. I really just couldn't cover everything in that in an ample amount of time.
I'm really looking forward to this. I've been like sitting on the edge of my seat all week because we knew we were going to be recording today. And I'm like, I can't wait. Because I don't actually know, like, a whole lot about Roswell. Like, I feel like I'm a fake alien believer. Because I don't know any, like, enough about it.
Well, prepare to dive into this crazy, crazy conspiracy.
And also, Frank and I are wearing our Roswell t-shirts that my mom got us from her trip out west. We
You
thought we'd be festive.
had to get in character for this one.
Yeah, so mine's like tie-dye, the really cute big green alien on it. And then what's yours?
Cute.
I mean, he's cute.
Oh,
Look at his little face. He's got shiny eyes.
okay, yeah, he is smiling, but like he's gonna
He's
probe you.
also putting the peace sign up, which I just think is like come in peace, which is nice.
He gonna probe you.
What's yours look like?
Same exact as yours, just not tie dye
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
or twinning.
But yeah, we're ready. We're festive. We're into this, and we're gonna get going.
Yep. Just letting you guys know, we will not be wearing theme shirts for every episode. This is just this one.
Yeah, I really wish that we could, but unfortunately, I don't have the time
Yeah,
or the patience to do
find me
that.
that Operation Paperclip shirt. That would go really well.
Yeah, I'm sure I could make one like with a
No,
cricket.
don't.
But
That would not be okay.
can you imagine just like a paper clip on your shirt?
Do you know what Operation Paperclip is?
No.
When we brought the Nazis into the U.S.
Oh,
I don't want a shirt of that.
that's probably a good idea. I guarantee you someone out there's got that shirt though.
Probably. There's a lot of funky stuff out there.
Oh my
So
gosh.
let's get into this then. Before we get into what happened on a fateful summer in 1947, I want to give you a bit of history about Roswell. So Roswell is in the state of New Mexico in the United States. The town was first settled in 1865 by settlers from Missouri and was abandoned not long after due to lack of water in the area. I mean, it is a desert, and yeah, that's a bit tough to get water there. And then 2 businessmen went back and started construction again in the area not long after, and then they created what is now Roswell.
Do you know how they got
I
the
think it was
city up without water?
aquifers. I think they found water in the ground finally.
Oh, okay.
They probably, I mean, they're businessmen back then that probably had better means than some settlers from Missouri, from what I saw.
One might even say they are men in black.
Didn't, yeah, okay. I did not expect that connection, but I don't think they were.
Okay.
So let's get back into it. In 1940, the population of Roswell was just above 13,400, so the place had grown substantially by then. So it was probably somewhat above that by the time in 1947 because the census is only every 10 years. But in 1941, the Walker Air Force Base was opened and would be an important military base. And after World War II, it became known as the Roswell Army Airfield, which that's going to be mentioned a lot here. So I'm going to refer to it as RAF, as that's what everybody else refers to it as.
Okay, cool.
So just for information, before it was RAF, it was a base that had a POW camp that had German and Italian POWs from during World War II, which I did not realize we shipped POWs back here. Occasionally, they were used for manual labor in the town, such as constructing roads.
Oh man.
And apparently, they put some symbols in the road for their forces that had to be covered over. So, yeah, that was an interesting fact.
Yeah, big yikes.
But most importantly, when it became RAF after the war, the 509th Composite Group was based here. So that group is the group that dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So this was one of the most important military groups in the world. The only nuclear capable bomber was part of this group.
Wow.
So this is not your run-of-the-mill military base. This is probably one of the most important military installations um, in the country at the time. And it was also not far from where the first atomic bomb was tested at the Trinity Nuclear Test Site. And on top of it, not too far away, was also the White Sands Proving Grounds. And that is where the U.S. was testing stuff like the German V-2 rockets as early as 1946 that they had recovered after the war. So this is an area where they were testing some of what was at the time top weapons between the atomic bomb, the V-2 rockets. I mean, this area was abuzz with military advancements.
Oh.
So, yeah, not your most insignificant place. But on either July night or June night, accounts vary. Some put it as far as middle of June. Most put it probably sometime early July. Over the peaceful town of Roswell and Corona, something crashed in the desert, and it was reported that there was a um, thunderstorm, and people heard your typical thunder in the sky, but also heard something else, like an explosion, something like lightning struck something.
Yeah, and this is different than like the explosions from testing the bombs.
Testing the bombs was like 60 to 80 miles away, so you wouldn't hear it from there.
Oh, okay.
But 60 to 80 miles is still not that far. So they heard something in the middle of the night in the thunderstorm. So I believe that the best assumption is on July 3rd, is when something crashed, because that's when the thunderstorm was. And just for some information about this time as well, this was about 2 weeks after Kenneth Arnold reported seeing flying saucers while flying around Mount Rainier in the state of Washington on June 24th. This is what started, well, this is where the term flying saucer was coined and where the flying saucer craze began. So this was at the beginning when it was, you know, everywhere. So this is either a connected thing or coincidence or unfortunate timing that this all happened around the same time.
Roswell didn't coin the saucer?
No, flying saucer was coined when Kenneth Arnold saw what he described as several flying saucers while going around Mount Rainier looking for a downed plane. That story exploded, and that's gonna have to be its own separate story because there's a lot to unpack in it.
Okay. Because I have questions, but I can save them for that episode.
So, whatever came down that night came down around the town of Corona, which is approximately 100 miles from Roswell. And it's believed the crash site was about 80 miles from Roswell, so about 20 miles out from Corona. But it was closer to Corona than Roswell, but because everything was brought back to Roswell, it's the Roswell Incident.
Oh, okay, I was gonna ask like why they wouldn't. I mean, I guess we already have something
Yeah.
Corona now, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have that then, so
Yeah.
I was gonna ask why they.
So this all started when William Brazel came across some strange debris when he was outside on the J.B. Foster Ranch. I've seen some people call it the Forester Ranch, but I've seen more people say the Foster Ranch. And he was herding sheep. And apparently he was also with a kid, I believe it is D.B. Proctor. And he was a 7-year-old kid who was with him at the time. But that part is up in the air with some people.
Was he
'Cause
like a family friend
he
kid?
helped around, no, it's D. Proctor. So he helped around, wanted to learn from Brazel and stuff like that. So some have him there at the time whenever Brazel first finds the debris. Other accounts have him there later.
Okay.
So Brazel came across a strange debris when he was out there, and he thought it was interesting. He didn't recognize what it was, so he boxed up some of it and decided to go to Roswell. And before he had brought it down to Roswell to show it off to ask the sheriff what to do with it, he had heard that there was a $3,000 reward out there for a flying saucer going around in the media. So there was a good amount of money on the line here if he actually had a flying saucer and could prove it to the news.
Wow. Yeah. How like would you know how much money that would be now?
No idea, but probably a good amount.
Yeah, because I mean, even $3,000 now would be a
Yeah,
lot.
I would turn in a flying saucer for 3,000 today. So to think what it meant back then, especially the fact that according to a lot of statements, Brazel was not really doing that well at the time, like really just barely scraping by. So once it was reported to Raft, so he took it to the sheriff, and the Sheriff George Wilcox, suggested that he take the material to Raft to report it there. So that's what Brazel did. He brought a box of some of the material and took it there. And Colonel William Blanchard assigned Major Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer for the 509th, and Sheridan Cavett, a counterintelligence corps member, to retrieve the rest of the material with Brazel. So they went back out there to where Brazel's claimed he found the stuff and collected the material and went back to Raft to deliver the material to the base.
Okay.
So shortly after, the material was taken to Fort Worth Army Airfield in Texas, and a story was published by Raft. And then it was published on July 8th by the Roswell Daily and others. The Roswell Daily headline was Raft captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. And that announcement was given by Colonel William Blanchard. So that was plastered on newspapers across the country.
Wow.
So that caught a lot of eyes. So the military was saying they got a flying saucer in the middle of the flying saucer craze. However, within 24 hours, the military retracted and debunked the original statement. And the statement was actually given the same day as the first, but printed in the news the following day. It was given by General Roger Ramey, and there's a famous picture out there of Major Jesse Marcel with Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield with Marcel with the debris, and it claims that it was a weather balloon.
A weather balloon?
That's what it always is. That's what it was in Los Angeles during the Battle of LA, and that's what it was here. It's always a weather balloon. So he posed with debris that did look like a weather balloon, some like tin foil, some pieces of wood and rubber. So nothing you wouldn't see in a weather balloon. But after this explanation, the story fell out of the public eye for a while, and no one really talked about it at all. So that died down for a considerable amount of time until 31 years later, in 1978, when UFOologist Stanton Friedman tracked down and interviewed Jesse Marcel to get his side of the story. And this opened the floodgates to many theories and eventually led to the government probes that led to their official story coming out. Before we get into stuff, I want to go into the government's official story for this, so we know what they said.
I just have a question.
Yep.
So, the guy who originally, he was in the army.
The guy who originally found it.
No, the guy who like originally made the statement that said that it
Oh,
was it was
Colonel William Blanchard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did anything ever happen to him?
Well, apparently he left the area not long after on leave for I think it was a vacation. He came back and continued. He resumed work then, so he
Okay.
was gone. He was out of the base for some time on leave. Records show that it was a personal trip, a vacation, but some speculate that it could have been something else. We'll get into more of that type of stuff after we go over the official story. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the theories, I just want to give you a timeline of the official story. So, first, in 1947, on July 8th, they found a flying saucer. Followed a day later that it was a weather balloon and they showed the wreckage. And that kept people quiet. And then after 1978, when people started questioning, at the behest of the congressmember from the area, the government did an investigation on it. And in 1994, to quell UFO speculation, the government released the Roswell Report, Fact versus Fiction in the New Mexico Desert. Here, they admitted that the weather balloon was a cover story. So, the one thing that is a definite fact that the original story was 100% a cover story. They claimed it was actually a spying device called Project Mogul. So this was a like acoustic equipment and microphones on a giant like array of balloons, and this could be like 600 feet worth of balloons,
Wow.
flown up to the upper atmosphere so they could try and spy and detect any explosions going on in the Soviet Union to see when they tested a nuclear bomb,
Oh, okay.
which is not even how they figured out a nuclear bomb was tested. That was by finding radiation, spiking radiation in the atmosphere when the Soviet Union did test their first.
So for this weather or like this, they're saying it's not a weather balloon, but they're saying it's like a device that will detect whether like nuclear bombs are being
It
launched.
will hear the sound of the explosion was the idea.
Was this our
Yeah.
technology? Okay, so like they weren't saying it was another country's
No,
spying
it
on
was
us.
ours, and it was built with like stuff from a toy factory and stuff like that, and other weather balloon material. But based on the size that they say, it should have probably created a larger debris field than what was found. And one thing I do not like about the story about that is you'd think the military would know that their balloon went down and would go for it before some rancher found it and brought it to them.
Yeah, I also think that this story is like more suspicious than
Well,
the story of the weather balloon.
we'll go into more detail as we go on what people believe actually happened and what people reported. So, Project Mogul was a definitive thing, and that is what the government reported. Now, however, there's still some discrepancy because people reported in the debris, both from people who saw the debris and people on the military base for where the debris was brought, they reported seeing bodies, child sized bodies, which were believed to be alien bodies. So this actually, there was another report about Roswell made by the government to try and explain the bodies that were reportedly sighting. So this came in as the Roswell Report, case closed in 1997, so 3 years after the first. So they claimed that these were crash dummies that were commonly used back then. However, there was an issue with that. Crash dummies aren't normally 3.5 to 4 feet tall, and that's the size of the bodies that were reported.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit that if I saw child-sized creatures like that looked almost humanoid, like somewhere and just randomly in the middle of the desert, like I would think that's really freaking creepy.
Yeah, but the military said these were dummies, and so if you remember, this happened in 1947. The dummies weren't in use until the 1950s.
So they okay, that doesn't even make sense. Like, don't they
Exactly.
recognize that like there's a paper trail?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's remember from what I said, this story was quiet until 1978. So there were 31 years of people not saying anything. So the explanation that given was that people actually saw the dummies in the 1950s, and they thought it was actually from the Roswell incident because so much time had passed that they mixed it all together, and they couldn't remember the actual time, so they started mending the events together.
I can understand that just because like eyewitness testimony, like even in any other case, can be like really unreliable because of like our brain doesn't always recognize those kinds of things. But like I find it hard to believe that they would feel like this would be in the 50s, but like they're saying it's from the 47. Like I find it hard to believe that people would believe that they were
We'll
like,
mix
"Oh, you
up
got."
those two events and make them one.
Yeah. I mean, I find that hard to believe.
That is part of the government's explanation, and there are some explanations that some people just embellish their what they believe they saw,
Yeah, I
which
mean
is
that
very
makes
believable.
sense.
And that's one issue we're going to find with almost everything we do. 90% of the stuff we talk about are going to be eyewitness testimonies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of especially like researching things that may not be as concrete as we would like them to be. Aliens, cryptids, hauntings, that kind of stuff. Like it really is going to be based on eyewitness
But
testimony.
that's why it's unknown, unsolved, and unseen.
Wow, I like that you dropped that in there.
So you want to get into theories on what this may be?
I sure do.
All right. So the official story, which clearly outlines an initial cover up for Project Mogul, but UFO investigators and witnesses claim that the Project Mogul story is simply another cover up. Now, let's then get details of the alleged to what have happened. A lot of this comes from Witness to Roswell by Thomas J. Carey and Donald R. Schmitt. It's a really good source. It's what a lot of people recommend, and it's probably the most thorough account of what happened at the Roswell incident that you'll find and what happened afterward.
That was the one that you mentioned at the top of the episode.
Yeah, and I'm going to. There's a lot that I can't get to in it just because it's so complicated, and I I highly recommend reading the book yourself if you're really interested into it. I'm going to talk about some of the more key details, but there is dozens upon dozens of witnesses that they talk about.
Yeah, this could always be something too that maybe later down the line
We,
we do a revisit or something like that.
yeah, maybe when we're more skilled at this. This is quite the one to task for first. So, for starters, witnesses allege that there are actually more than one crash site near the town of Corona. Allegedly, after Mac Brazel first found the wreckage, he went back with some friends to check further, rather than go directly to Roswell, as what some of the official story leads you on to believe. So, one person who allegedly was with him was 7-year-old Timothy Proctor, who I mentioned earlier, but he goes by D. Proctor. That's his middle initial.
Oh, okay.
So it's claimed that he most likely saw bodies because how it went was he saw something that scared him. He was never the same, and for decades refused to talk about it. He would avoid anybody who asked him about it. He would get scared when you asked him anything.
That's so sad.
Yeah, whatever was traumatized him from what I've found.
Oh my gosh.
Until when his mother was close to death, he showed her a site 2.5 miles from where Brazel found the wreckage and mentioned, "This is where Mac found something else."
Okay, that is so creepy. So mom's dying? Like
So
this isn't even him. This isn't his deathbed confession.
no, he took his mom out there to show where he said Mac found something else.
So who found out that he took his mom out there? Like, is this his
I
self-report?
I forget if I don't think it detailed if it was his self report or what his mom said.
Yeah, because I'm like,
I
did
think this is
mom be
I
like,
think
oh
his
my god, he said something?
I think his mom is the one who's that told people, but I I did not write that down. So another alleged witness during this was Sidney Jack Wright, who was also a kid at the time and would corroborate that bodies were found in the wreckage. Allegedly, there was debris around multiple areas, and multiple people came out to find it, and a lot of people took some of it home. And they claimed that the material was tough, couldn't be burned or cut, but at the same time, it would flow like water. And when you would like close it or crumple it in your hand, it would be like water, and then when you stop, it would reform to the shape it was before.
Okay.
But apparently, the government, the military, started confiscating stuff and threatening people as well. Say, we'll kill you and your whole family if you speak out on this.
That is, unfortunately, I don't think the first time that I've heard something like that happening from the government, but
Yeah.
that's devastating.
Yeah, so Sidney Wright had also claimed that that happened, and that's why he was quiet about seeing bodies and seeing the debris. He is one who supported what D. Proctor allegedly showed his mom, that that's where the bodies were, while other people were taking debris.
Was there something that precipitated them coming out later? Like, because obviously, if
Well,
the government's threatening them, like,
this was before the government threatened them. If you're talking about when he showed where the site of the bodies was, this was decades later.
okay, but would so they no longer believed that they were under threat by the
Yeah,
government?
eventually, whenever it became more of a public thing and people started talking about it, I think there is a belief that it would be too hard for them to silence everyone talking
Okay.
because they're right out there. But I think the government at that point, if you start eliminating people, you draw eyes.
Yeah, that would be suspicious for
I
sure.
believe that's the Streisand effect. Whereas if you like address something that's false, it gives more credence to it.
Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah. So the next thing that was key that allegedly happened was that when Brazel went to the sheriff, KGFL Roswell announcer Frank Joyce was actually calling the sheriff's office at the time, trying to see what get any scoops on any stories. And when he was there, Brazel was there, and the sheriff recommended that Brazel talks with Joyce on the phone to tell him about it. So Brazel allegedly told um, Joyce about all this debris in at the ranch, complaining about who's going to mess it up, and then he started talking about bodies. And Joyce was like, "Oh, what? There's people bodies or like monkey bodies?" And Brazel was like getting angry. He's like, "No, no, they are not. They aren't human. They aren't from here."
Wow, that's ominous.
Yeah, and that's what he had told him. So then Brazel, he obviously did not believe it was a weather balloon and believed it was something else. So Brazel was then, shortly after, allegedly detained by the U.S. Army Air Forces for 4 to 5 days, was interrogated during the time, apparently not treated well, and during that time, the military did their cleanup of all the debris field.
Hmm.
So this is when things got into overdrive with them, when they started really trying to get a hold of what was going on. So after being released from custody, he was taken to KGFL Roswell, where he would meet with Joyce in person, and apparently he was with two men from the base who were escorting him there.
Okay.
And he talked to Joyce and recanted all of the stuff he said, that it wasn't aliens and all this stuff, that it was actually a weather balloon, that the military was right on that.
Are there theories of like what got to him?
Well, probably they threatened him, and I'll get to that shortly after. What else there was allegedly involved? But Joyce kept asking him, "Hey, are you sure?" and trying to get the answer from him, and Brazel kept telling him no. And then as Brazel was leaving, as he was about to exit the door, he turned to Joyce and said, "Also, they weren't green." Because people were calling the bodies little green men, because that's what people called aliens. So as he left, he allegedly told Joyce they weren't green.
Okay. That's like that's so hard because you know that like he believed what he saw and he wasn't allowed to be truthful about that, but like there's a part of him that was like I need to dispel this narrative because it's not what I saw, but I also can't comment
Mm-hmm.
specifically on what I saw, and so I'm gonna like recant it all, and then I'm gonna throw in this little tidbit that like
Yeah.
completely changes the narrative.
And he's also recanting with military individuals with him, allegedly.
Yeah, they escorted him in,
Yep.
so
So that's where that came with. And along with this, allegedly KGFL was warned by the government not to air anything of what Brazel originally told them. and said there would be consequences if they did.
It's like that kind of stuff goes to show you that like they knew what was going on.
They knew something. Now, granted, project if it was truly Project Mogul, there is definite reason to cover that up. If it's aliens, equally reason to cover it up.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, because you don't want the Soviets to know that you're listening in on them in the upper atmosphere.
I guess I just have something against the government covering things up, like keeping that kind of
Hmm.
information from people.
Yeah. So after this, it was also alleged, and I forgot to mention, I'm going to be using the word alleged a lot because a lot of this is can't be verified.
That makes sense.
So allegedly by neighbors and friends of Brazel, he left his job shortly after at the ranch, a job he was barely scraping by on, and he got a new truck and started his own company.
Okay, that's suspicious.
Yep, quite the turnaround for him.
Hmm.
So it's believed by uh people that it's not just that he was threatened, but he was also bribed with a better life.
Yeah, and that's hard because if you're living such a hard life, like not only was he struggling for money, but he's working on a ranch. That's hard work. And if he like was struggling so much, the possibility of having such freedom with a bribe of money, like it's like I don't blame him for not passing that up.
Yeah, and then it's reported that over the years, people would still ask him about this from time to time, and he would always just get cold, motionless, never answer anything, get real standoffish, and typically just tell him nothing and leave.
Hmm.
So he never wanted to talk about it again. So a lot of the reports about him after enduring come from a lot of different people, like Frank Joyce from KGFL Roswell. He gave that account in the '90s, well afterwards, and the neighbors and friends of Brazel gave it well afterwards.
Is there any mention anywhere of maybe like his mental health because holding on to something like that, like that creating that defensive mode
Nope.
when he's asked about it?
Mental health, I don't think really is mentioned at all, besides the fact that D. Proctor was traumatized by whatever he saw.
Okay. That's a shame.
The book was written in 2007, and a lot of this happened in 1947. Mental health wasn't as big of a thing back then.
Yeah, I can't help but always question that kind of thing because of my background. And so I'm always looking at things like from the perspective of like, well, what's going on? Like that emotionless face that he gets, the defensiveness, that kind of thing. Like holding on to a secret like that,
Yeah.
like could make you go crazy.
Yeah, and it could also be stemming from the fact that allegedly when he's detained, it was not good for him. He did not like it. It really upset him, really disturbed him,
Yeah, that kind of
because
trauma,
he
like
was not treated well from everything that he had allegedly told people and that they had shared with others.
that's like such a shame because it's like you want to have faith in the government, and then you hear this kind of stuff, and you're just like, oh man, like he was just a man.
Yeah, so then after this, in the meantime, during all this, while the debris and the alleged bodies were being retrieved, they were stored in hangar P3 RAF, and apparently this hangar then became under armed guard. People weren't supposed to be going in and out, but there are multiple, both civilians and military members who reported that they saw debris that was not from a weather balloon, and also saw 8 multiple bodies. Now, the bodies I've seen anywhere from 3 to 4 stated, but it's always like up in the air. I see multiple different numbers.
I think it'd be hard to decipher like a number of bodies if they're as small as they're saying they
Well,
are.
3.5 to 4 feet. I mean, that's just child size.
Yeah, but even then, like, how are the bodies displayed? Are they like
They're just out. Most people say they have a tarp over them,
okay?
and allegedly one of them might have still been alive.
Oh, the alien was alive in there. What were they doing to him?
That's talked about in many different stories about what happened. So During all of this, the debris from the crash was being moved about. The material that Brazel brought to RAF was sent to two different locations, allegedly. Some of the material was sent to Washington to go to the Pentagon, while the rest was sent to Fort Worth in Texas, which is where we see that famous picture of Marcel with the material during the photo op and the statement that it was a weather balloon. But
Okay.
allegedly, that material that he shows is not the actual material and was swapped out.
Hmm.
So after it was at Fort Worth, it was then sent to Wright-Patterson Airfield up in Dayton, Ohio. So let's get into the other big name of this, Major Jesse Marcel. He was I believe, it was the top intelligence officer for the 509th at RAF. So a distinguished individual with a fairly high up position. So the reason why people started questioning the Roswell story was because in 1978, as I stated earlier, Stanton Friedman had tracked down Marcel and had interviewed him on this because he was in an area um, doing an interview, and somebody had mentioned to him, "Oh, hey, Jesse Marcel's in this area, and I bet he has some very interesting stuff to tell you." So Friedman went and interviewed him. So Marcel then alleges that he had taken some of the debris home and described the material. So this was whenever he first retrieved it, he took some of it home with him. And his son, Jesse Marcel Jr., describes later on what Marcel Sr. had brought to their place. So, and this is what a lot of people group the type of debris we hear about from Roswell. So there were these I beams that were anywhere from, I believe it was 18 to 30 centimeters long, or no, I think 18 to 30 inches long. So these I beams were made of metal. They were as light as balsa wood, and with purple hieroglyphs on them. Some people allege these purple hieroglyphs glowed,
Okay.
and the writing resembled no known language, no Asian or Eastern European language where the characters are fairly different than what we see in the regular English alphabet. Uh, Completely different than anything else on this planet.
And there was no, they weren't able to connect it to any like ancient hieroglyphics or
Nope,
anything like that.
not to my knowledge, but allegedly it's just weird symbols that the toy company that made some of the parts for Mogul put on their stuff.
Okay, wait. So they're saying that it was put like, because they're saying that the parts for this weather balloon or whatever were made by this toy company,
Yeah,
right?
quite a bit of it was made by a toy company,
So they're saying
apparently.
that those symbols were just simply things that the toy company
Yep,
put on there.
yep.
Okay.
So the one of the other types of material was some metallic gray substance, so almost like foil, that no matter how you bent or folded it, it would go back to its original shape. It's like the liquidy thing I had mentioned earlier.
So then, like, there's nothing we have
No.
in the world that does that?
Do you know of any aluminum foil thing that crumples like a liquid and then folds out back like a solid?
No, but I'm just curious if there's anything that kind of.
Not to my knowledge, there's nothing like that. And from what I read, there is nothing like that.
Okay.
So it's interesting. And then a brittle black plastic material. That's all I got.
Okay.
That I didn't find too many more vivid descriptions on it. Marcel Senior claimed that whatever that was, it was not of this earth, and would continue to try and tell what he believed was true. Um, his son Junior would continue his father's legacy by pushing for the truth. After Marcel Senior's death in 1986, he pushed for it most of his life, following his father's passing until he passed away in 2013.
Oh.
So um, he remembers a lot of the material that he brought, that his dad brought home, and corroborated that his dad did bring something home and that it had those unknown properties. So that was that fell in line then with what other people reported too. But we run into the issues of one person reports one thing at first time, and a lot of other people say they see it. They're kind of given a baseline on what to report.
Okay. So there was no concern that the material was like radioactive or
No,
anything like that.
no, and that is actually what we brought up later.
Okay. Sorry. I got
Nope,
ahead of you.
you are it. You are asking the right questions, but they are answered.
Okay, cool.
So, a counter to Marcel, though, on his story was it was released later that he would exaggerate certain things and embellish stuff on his reports. And this is from the government that would release this not long after he came out with his story.
Okay.
So that could either them just, you know, making stuff up, try and squash the story, or just trying to explain why he's saying this. Because there's a chance he really was just a guy trying to embellish stuff, or there's a chance that he government's just trying to do their cover up. And granted, this came out. This is 1978. We're talking, so this is still 14 years before. Wait, no, 16 years before the Project Mobile story is officially published.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah. So if you remember, he's the guy at on the picture. So it stated that that he said that for the photo op, when he got there to General Ramey's office, he dropped off the material, and Ramey asked him to point out on a map where the debris was found. So he did that, showed him where it was around, so that they could understand where whatever this craft was, where it crashed. And when he was done, he went back out to the debris for the public statement, and Marcel alleges that what he was given was not the same debris that he brought in. That it was swapped.
I wonder what exactly made him think that. Like, what exactly made him recognize that it was different material?
Well, based on how he said it, it was obviously different than what he had brought.
Okay.
Now we're going to get into stuff where the bodies are talked about. So I want to get into what people say the bodies were. So most accounts put them at 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Um, so these were like child-sized bodies, and these were never alleged or claimed by Marcel, but multiple other sources talked about the body. But these don't come from Marcel, to my knowledge.
And he's the actual one that saw the crash.
He saw the debris and took the debris over. Where he was allegedly shown, as we stated earlier, the body site that D. Proctor pointed out to his mother was 2.5 miles away from the debris field that Brazel showed the military. So there's a good chance that whatever Marcel saw was not where the alleged bodies were.
Okay, that makes more sense than why he wouldn't know.
Yeah. Now some say that the bodies were flown with Marcel to Fort Worth, but some don't say that. So that one's up in the air. Issue with eyewitnesses.
I think even then, like, if you think about a plane, like you have the cargo hold, and then you also have like where the people would sit. I mean, I understand like
Well,
military planes are
they
set
took
up differently.
B-29 bomber is what they took, and that's
But like I still feel like I don't
fairly
know
large plane.
the
So
contact he would have with those things.
I don't know. They are small. So back to the bodies though, but I won't give a description of them. The amount of bodies vary, but the description stays relatively the same. So they are alleged to be 3.5 to 4 feet tall, child size. Skin is described as gray or tan or something along that line. Two openings on the face, presumed to be a mouth and a nose. Two black almond-shaped eyes, which you can see on your shirt. No ears, long arms, and 4 fingers. And some of them depict them wearing gray skin-tight jumpsuits that cover most of their body besides the head. But those were people who got closer to them who alleged that. But
Where
they were not green.
yeah, where did that come from?
I don't know where little green men came from, but as Brazel said, they weren't green.
Hmm. My guy's correct at least per your description. He's got the mouth, although he has two small dots for his
I
nose.
don't know. Some people drew it as two noses, but count that as one opening.
Okay. And then I have the almond shaped eyes, and then I do have the 4 fingers.
Yep.
So at least that's correct.
So, these bodies were allegedly retrieved and taken with the material to Hangar P3, which is also known as Building 84 at RAF. So, the bodies, 3 or 4, depending on where you look. Some stories say they're all dead. Some there's one alive, and in almost all cases, for the alive one, is taken prisoner and taken to Wright Patterson Airfield. And what's alleged then is it stays there for some time. It's shown to people he's alive, or it's alive, and it survives maybe another like 4 or 5 years before it dies.
I see my question with that is how do we make it survive? Like,
No
that
idea.
sounds
That
stupid, but
mm,
I'm like, what do they eat? What do they drink? How do we know that's what they're doing? Like, are we communicating somehow? How are we keeping this thing alive? There's no way that it's
and that none of those details are addressed in this. However, in other abduction cases and whatnot, people talk about how these things apparently communicate. I don't see many people talk about how they eat, except for one of the other books I read for this, which I'll go into later, but I don't think that book is accurate.
okay.
The bodies were allegedly on July 9th sent to Fort Worth, Texas on a B-29 bomber known as the Straight Flush from Roswell. Um, the bodies and debris would then allegedly be flown to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. The bodies were then allegedly dissected and would then play. This would play into the alleged alien autopsy video that would be released in 1995. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but that one did turn out to be a hoax.
I'm sure that I've probably seen it on something.
Yeah, but the alien autopsy and everything around it can be its own episode, but it was found to be a hoax. Sorry for the spoiler.
Yeah, man, that's I'm just kidding.
So, Wright Field would later become Wright Patterson Air Force Base, and at the time, um, it was a home to one of the key locations for the Foreign Technology Division, part of the government solely dedicated to reverse engineering and figuring out foreign technologies, which would include alien technology if you think about it. So the debris and alleged bodies were taken here.
Okay.
So, now I'm going to go into another witness here, Glenn Dennis. So, Dennis was a mortician in Roswell in 1947. He alleges that he was asked by RAF about providing child-sized caskets, and they wouldn't give him any more details. They would then ask him about embalming techniques for bodies that had been out in the desert for some time, and eventually, he would be called out to the base's hospital because the funeral home he worked for also did ambulance services, and there was somebody who was injured who needed help. So, um, so he took the injured individual to the uh, hospital on the base, and while he was there, he said he saw some strange debris in some crates. He described the I beam and some of that stuff that he saw that, which is an interesting allegation. And then he said there was a nurse that he knew who told him he needed to get out of here, that he wasn't meant to see any of this. And shortly after leaving, the hospital, he was threatened by a captain and a sergeant to stay silent and that he needs to get out of there. So he leaves, and he mentions that later that nurse, she got shipped somewhere else. She did give him details that there were two badly mangled bodies and one was not as injured, and they smelled awful, which is something that other people alleged as well, that these bodies smelled absolutely horrid. Um, he's So Dennis then claims that shortly after she was transferred, and he learned not long after she was declared deceased in a plane crash. Now, when people dug into this, he eventually gave him a name of a nurse. This person didn't exist. And
Oh man.
then he told him, "Oh yeah, I made up that name. I tricked you guys. Now I'll give you the actual name. Still not a person."
That makes like everything he said
Yeah, and then
discredited.
it's alleged that he changed multiple other things in his story, and even I believe it was his neighbor who helped him make sketches of the bodies that he claimed to have heard about, said we can make some crazy money off this.
That's like such a shame
Yeah,
because I don't know. Like I understand discrepancy in eyewitness testimony, but this isn't discrepancy. This is just straight up,
admitting to lying. Yeah,
yeah,
and
infactual.
so after the first lie, it's really hard to believe it going forward, and then to learn he lies more than once.
No, I was like rooting for him.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really like him, but Witness to Roswell doesn't put him in too negative of a light, which I don't appreciate. But in reality, he's not a good source. But he did say he wanted to make money off this allegedly, so he did do that eventually because he is the founder of the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell, which is still there today. So that gives a brief glimpse into Roswell today and how it's evolved, but he kept with the story and opened a place. So I don't want to undermine the International UFO Museum and Research Center. So I'm just saying that's what happened. So let's move on to one last witness that I did some brief looking into. So Walter Haut, who in an unsealed affidavit after his death claimed to tell the truth in 2005. So leading up to this, he didn't say much on it besides the fact that he didn't believe the story and he didn't think anything else would come out of it. There is some suspicion about his affidavit because he was older at the time, if somebody kind of guided him through it or not.
Okay.
But so here's some of the stuff he alleged. He alleged that an egg-shaped craft crashed into the New Mexico desert and was retrieved by raft along with a couple of small bodies. He could not get details because they were under tarps when he saw them. He was also, in his affidavit, confirmed that he was told that there is no radiation from this. So that goes back to your question from earlier, but no radiation.
Okay, so he said egg-shaped, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Egg on its side?
No, like egg. The egg itself.
Oh, the yolk.
No, like the egg with the shell.
That doesn't make sense with the...
It's not a flying saucer.
So it's kind of like Textbird, which was the acorn?
Yeah.
Where it's like its own unique shape?
Yeah, just think of a flying giant egg.
Okay.
That's the best I can tell you.
Can you imagine if this... I'm going to cut this out of the podcast, but can you imagine if there was a chick in the egg? It's just flying around.
Cut that.
It's just flying around.
a giant chick. Okay. But that's what's alleged. And there are other stories that when you go further on, UFOs are in a few categories. There's your saucers, your egg-shaped ones, your cigar-shaped one, triangle ones. So, like, egg-shaped is not out of the ordinary.
I didn't know that there were that many different shapes of UFOs. I guess that makes sense.
Gotta educate yourself on these UFOs.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because they're unidentified flying objects. Yeah. They don't all need to be the same.
Yeah. So, he believed that whatever it was, it came from space, he stated in the affidavit.
Did he, state why he thought that?
No.
Neat.
But the bodies he did not believe were human, and the craft was not from here, so he believed it came from space. So that's what I have from Witness to Roswell.
Okay.
So I'm going to go into some of the other allegations here.
Oh, yeah.
So this comes from Colonel Philip J. Corso's account, which he released shortly before his death. So this is the day after Roswell, which was released in the late 90s. I got halfway through the book, but I've seen a lot of the summaries of it.
Okay, so you said he's a corporal?
Colonel.
Colonel.
So in this account, the Army was at the main crash site extremely fast, retrieved the wreckage, and captured the aliens before anybody saw any of this. So already contradicting everything else we talked about.
Yeah, was he even anywhere near it?
No, he was not. This is what he read, allegedly read.
Then why does his account mean anything?
Well, apparently in 1961, he was put in charge of the debris and finding out what they could do with it.
Oh, okay.
So he said that they were collecting debris, and there were 3 dead aliens and 1 living. And the living one was crawling, injured, and the military police that were there were telling the alien to stop moving, and all this stuff, and it didn't listen, so they shot it and killed it.
I just need a second to process the fact that they thought saying stop to an extraterrestrial being was going to make it stop.
That's what they thought, so they gunned him down. Yeah, that's what's alleged in his thing. So, so he claims his first encounter was when the material was on its way to Fort Worth, not Fort Worth, Wright Airfield in Dayton. He was at the time stationed at Fort Riley in Kansas, and that the alien bodies and debris took a pit stop at Fort Riley in Kansas, and it was left in a building unattended.
Unattended?
Yep.
What kind of governmental procedure is
And
this?
so he claims one of the men under him snuck in while he was guarding the. He was supposed to be guarding his post and saw what was in there and showed Corso what there was. And Corso told him he shouldn't be doing that, and he went in and he saw the alien body in a box. And he didn't know what it was, and him and the other guy said they wouldn't talk about it, and they left it at that. So that's a very interesting aspect of it, that it made a pit stop in Kansas, but that is not claimed in anywhere else, and that this was just left unguarded. While in the other stuff, people were getting threatened and shit was guarded heavily.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Well, the aliens ain't in Kansas anymore, I can tell you that, because they apparently, some went to, I believe it was Wright Field, and I think some to Walter Reed to get dissected there.
You should see if your sister knows anything about that.
I don't know if she would. But, so he claims that then in 1961, he got a position at the Pentagon, and he was given the orders by General Trudeau to figure out how to how to reverse engineer this technology without others figuring out. Because according to his thing, which I find this really odd, the CIA, the Army, Air Force, and the Navy all were at odds with each other, fighting each other actually, and that the CIA and the KGB were both heavily infiltrated by one another. So the CIA was actually the KGB, and the KGB was the CIA, and vice versa. It didn't make sense. And I'm like, from everything else I've read about the Cold War and the awful stuff that happened during it, there's no way the CIA was the KGB. There's no way. But he alleges it.
Well, that's why we use the word allegedly.
Yeah, so he then alleges that this material was then disseminated through defense contractors throughout the country to allow for many things to be made and integrate this advanced technology into our current technology, like microchip, lasers, night vision, a whole variety of stuff. Apparently, almost making a moon base too. And he said the U-2 spy plane, which was eventually crashed in Russia and in the Soviet Union after we were spying on them, was actually there not just to spy on the Soviets, but to look for aliens landing in Soviet Union.
Did he have like some thought process that we have like a right to the aliens? Like, as the United
I don't
States,
know.
we have the right to just go investigate whether other countries are dealing with
He
aliens?
believed the aliens were hostile, and they kept, testing humanity's defense and whatnot. There were actually times where he shot down some UFOs after 1947, but his stuff kind of reads like a science fiction novel.
That's what I'm gathering.
That's what I've heard from others, and from what I've read, I agree with it. I just don't find it believable. So I really didn't take much of it. I've read halfway through. I won't finish it, but I got enough of the idea, both from summaries online and just from what I've read.
Your dedication to reading half of it is impressive.
It is. It really is. It is a slog to read. It is taking forever.
I'm not used to you DNFing
I'm not
books.
going DNF. I will finish it. Just won't take a
Okay.
while.
Okay.
I leave no book left behind. So let's go to another theory, and this one is it's a theory. So this one suggests that what crashed at Roswell was not Project Mogul, nor was it aliens. So we have option 3. Instead, it was a craft from the USSR, so the Soviet Union sent it. So this comes from the book Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Military Base by Annie Jacobson, which I've not actually read this book, but I've looked over some of the summaries and other places that cite this book, so I'm just going to give an idea on that. I don't know if I want to read this.
So
maybe when we do Area 51, I'll look at it, but
can anyone just
claim whatever?
Yeah, like
yes.
Just just pretend something's history and claim it as history? Wow.
So in this version, she claims that Joseph Mengele, the architect behind many of the abhorrent experiments done by the Nazis in concentration camps, was recruited by Joseph Stalin. Mengele helped create grotesque child-sized aviators that would be sent over to America in remotely piloted crafts. So like weird crafts with weird-looking grotesque children.
Oh, so when he says aviators, that's what he means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure if they had anything capable of doing that at the time, but okay. But these would land and release these abominations to cause panic in America. It was actually one of these crafts that crashed in Corona, and those bodies were neither dummies, pilots, or aliens, but instead abomination children. And the U.S. military covered it up, and they sent this stuff to Area 51.
Isn't there a cryptid?
Melonheads?
Yeah.
Yeah, so think of melonheads, but probably grosser, apparently.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like those that was like children that were experimented on too.
Yeah. So, this theory is not widely accepted by many. This one is, people already call people who believe in the alien crash sometimes fringe, but this is fringe to the power of the third.
That's exponential.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I do not believe this story.
I mean, I only know from what you've told me just now, but I don't believe it either.
Yeah, I think it's a bit crazy. So, I'm gonna be honest, there is so much more to Roswell, but we don't have forever to talk about it. I don't want to bog you guys down on a 2-hour episode or maybe 3-hour episode or multiple parter for our first. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. Sage, what are your final thoughts on this?
I mean, I think that I would be doing my belief in unknown things just like I would not be doing it justice if I said I didn't believe that this happened. Like, I definitely think that something happened, but I think it's really concerning that there's so many different viewpoints, especially from people who weren't even there or weren't even near it. And then you've got like this really weird like governmental aspect into it that like they release a statement, it gets retracted within the first 24 hours. Then come 2020 or 2021 when they released all the files that like yeah, we do know that there's UFOs. So it's like it's just really interesting to me like kind of that conspiracy that's behind all of that
Yeah,
and concerning.
Yep, and it seems like a lot of people are building off other people's claims ever since 1978. There's like a roadmap for them all to follow when they make their allegations.
Yeah, and I think that that happens a lot too with just really any like case really where like people have an idea of something. So like when you hear about like copycat serial killers.
But
I don't know,
so what do you think? Aliens or not?
I do think it was aliens. I do. I have to.
How many alien bodies out of 10 do you think this is aliens?
On a scale of 1 alien to 10 aliens, how alien is this?
Yeah.
4.
So 4 out of 10 on aliens.
Yeah. Maybe you could convince me to like 6.
So do you not think it's alien, or you marginally think it is?
I marginally think it is, but there's a lot of concerning things around here that discredit a lot of the like stories.
Yeah. You might have to read the book at some point because there's a lot to it. But I'm gonna give I follow a lot of the same thought process as you. I really see the issue that a lot of people allege the stuff after somebody else alleged it and build off each other. You have like that Glenn Dennis who his allegations fall in line with others, but it breaks apart real easily when you look further into it. I mean, and then like Philip J. Corso's allegations and book contradict so much of the others. There's just so many layers to it. And Project Mogul, the story the government puts out there is very believable. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give it 5 alien bodies out of 10.
Okay. Is that how we're gonna rate all of our episodes?
I just did it for this one.
Okay. Okay. I did have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
That I was kind of thinking of while you were talking. So I think that a huge aspect of this is that it took place in the 40s, right?
Yep, 47.
There's no social media, there's no handheld cell phones, there's no video recorders. at least good video recorders that we would still have.
Nothing that is
Um,
easily accessible to everyday Americans.
yeah, and so I'm curious what your thoughts would be on how you think the public would respond to something like this today, like with that access to all that
I
technology.
think with the technology the government has, they'd be on top of this before we'd know.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you have to really think of where everybody was at technologically, because the government's always kind of more advanced than us. They don't tell us, but even then, they probably were not advanced to know about this immediately, unless you're Philip J. Corso, who said they were.
Yeah, I guess my thought is like we see videos all the time of like, oh my gosh, here's this unidentified flying object, and it's like weird light shows or whatever that are in the sky, and so um I was
Also,
thinking like, well, what if somebody's like somebody is near where this crash site is before like or while it's happening, like how that would go viral. So like if the government didn't cover it up right away,
mhm.
how do you think the public would?
I think the public will go crazy, and you'd have mass panic, because it would really shatter a lot of beliefs. So that's why I think would happen. But I did want to give one brief update on Roswell in general, because nowadays the town of Roswell is synonymous with aliens. The McDonald's is UFO shaped. Alien stuff is everywhere there. They have the International UFO Museum and Research Center. The town is centered around this now,
Yeah.
so it's become a big part of the culture there.
Yeah, the tourism, the money that it
Yeah.
brings. Like no
So the
wonder.
town has embraced. They don't shy away from it. They full on embrace it.
I think that that's actually really cool though.
Yeah, and I like that type of stuff, because that's the type of stuff you and I look for when we're on road trips. On what can we find weird that's related to this area.
Yeah, and like when you talk about like the Mothman Festival and stuff.
Yeah.
But very
So
good, very cool.
yeah, I think that's our final thoughts here. Thank you guys for listening to this. If you like our podcast, appreciate if you guys would, rate, like the podcast, follow it on Spotify, or subscribe, whatever there is on Apple Podcasts. I don't use it. Um, give us a 5 star if you think we're that good. Tell your friends about us, and follow us on our socials, which will be linked in the episode description. Every follow, every like means a lot to us. Just get out there and share the podcast if you like this. So I think we're done here.
I
I
think we
think
are.
this is what we have for Roswell right now. We might revisit it one day with probably more information, and if so, it probably won't be a one-part episode.
Well, I can't wait
And remember,
to look for
the unknown,
the unsolved.
the unseen.
Bye everybody, thanks for
See you guys. Thanks
listening.
for listening.